check it out. We are back at the wall, ready to do a little raw. I'm feeling we got a handful of scrap cans here, majority in the blue shading, so we'll get into that. And then I think I actually used the pink on the last round, some pink buff. So gonna see how we get down. We got a few different artists already set up. Always gotta make sure to grab a couple photos of the wall before I get started. Always a kind gesture to make sure if anybody comes back and I've gone over them, they get at least one last photo. Got Botsky holding down this side too. Crazy piece. Nice prawn hit up on it. And another monster style. Real fresh stuff on that side, so I'm gonna leave that as it's rocking real strong. Go to my traditional side and get some practice in. Oh yeah, we got an okay piece over here. A little throwy. Tucked in the grass. Also, this wall's been getting beat up pretty good with some peeled sections. I know you see me paint over this area kinda almost every time I come. So I got some crack filler in the hopes that I could do with some service.
This piece was actually my first time back out on the wall in the springtime, and it was right before Noah had come to do that collab that I've now already posted. So I was trying to do my due diligence as being a good host, that if we wanted to paint on this side of the wall that we could have the opportunity to with a much smoother surface. So went ahead and tried my best at filling up some of these huge little craters, and in all honesty it worked pretty well. This stuff was gnarly and sticky, so it definitely was a give and take. I filled it up once, had to let it totally dry, then fill it up again. So I can kind of recommend it if you've got a ton of peeling going on with your wall, or you've got a hole you need to fill in. It was a little ambitious though, trying to paint right over top of it as soon as it was done setting up, so take that to note. So it definitely could be worthwhile to let it set up overnight and then go at it for a finishing touch, rather than do what I did and paint right over top of it just as soon as it's barely dry. If you haven't seen that collab video with Noah, it's a heavy one for sure. I was super hyped with the full production that we put together, so definitely check that out after this video if you got some more time.
Oh yeah, I also got this mega rough surface roller. See if that makes my buff a little easier. I don't think they had those the last time I was looking, because I was going for the maximum and they just had a kind of rough one, which was probably even half as spongy as this.
Little word to the wise, you can use a quarter here to open up your cans. Definitely easier to keep in my bag rather than a big screwdriver or a actual paint key. And this is also Kills buff paint. Highly recommend. Much more opaque than your standard kind of cheap drywall paint. Can definitely get a much better coverage, and if it comes in a vibrant pink color like this, even better. Normally it just comes in a white. Rarely do I see like the Oops paint come back with the mix in it. But maybe there was a bedroom going down that they need to prime up some heavy wood, because I think this stuff's standard is to cover up knots in wood. They tend to bleed through quite a bit when it's unprimed, so it's definitely got a nice heavy opacity to it. The last time I was in there I got a bucket of white. In all honesty, the bucket of white's probably some of your cheaper buff paint to begin with. If you're buying a can brand new off the shelf, it's about 18 bucks a gallon. So Oops paint comes in at only $8 or $9, so obviously the better route that way if you can find them. But if I'm going for a pure white, I definitely go after Kills.
Oh, we already got a bug in the mix. This roller's gonna be 5 pounds after it's all filled up too.
I ended up liking this roller quite a bit. It was good at getting in the grooves. There's so much texture to this wall that a normal roller just doesn't have the reach to get into all the little holes. So it did use a fair bit more paint because it was laying a little bit thicker of a coating on there. I kind of feel like I'm just saying that though. It's not like it used double the paint. Maybe only 10% more, but made my buff much smoother and quicker. So in all honesty, I'll trade that cost to productivity benefit right there pretty much every time. I went back to the store to try to find some more of these the next time I went and couldn't find that same size, so I certainly hope it wasn't an anomaly that they had this stocked. Come to think of it, I kind of had given up because I hadn't seen it in the store the last few times I went. Maybe it's due time I go check again. You can see that foam has started to expand quite a bit, so it's actually now standing proud of the crater, so that's a good sign. I'm gonna avoid it as I buff out because it's definitely not ready yet. I always like to bring along a trash bag to throw my paint tray and roller in. Helps to keep them from drying up too bad. You know, it's not such a big deal if the tray starts to dry, but if that roller gets too dry while I'm out here for a couple hours and then bring it all the way home, it's definitely not going to clear out and you'll end up with some pretty hard sections. So I like to try to keep this as reusable as possible, and the trash bag does pretty well. A gallon bag around the actual roller does even better. So if you can go for that, that'll keep things sealed up a little bit better. Make sure that the roller doesn't dry at all. So anybody want to take a guess at what I'm doing here, pacing back and forth across the wall? In all honesty, the center of this wall is pretty easy to find with the rolling out where the last two people painted, but sometimes I take the extra step to go and find that center of even my buff area, so I can make sure my piece is relatively centered. You know, I'm never perfect around it, but it'll at least give me a guide. So if I don't run too wide, because time and time again I've started to let my letters trail if I started all the way to the left, and it's much better in my opinion to take the time to try to center it at least and start from the middle of your piece than letting it trail and end up with some wonky kind of shapes and spans of each letter. That way I don't walk too far and trail my V and the E or have to cram them in. You know, it lets me somewhat proportionally step this up and get at least the baseline going. And especially given that I'm freestyle on this, making that center fold to start with my two center letters definitely is a good learning experience because I've messed them up plenty of times. I honestly don't hate sketching out with color plays. It's a little rough on your hand, you know, the valve's not too cushioned, but you know, covers so lightly and dries so quickly when you get a graph cap on there that it really does serve as a nice soft kind of outline. Definitely isn't the best to totally outline with, but it allows you to get a nice kind of soft approach and basically a free outline to practice up with. You know, I feel like I'm graffiti block out here with all those little pocket cans, just using what you got to not have to waste a good can when you're really just kind of sketching and throwing some stuff up there. Definitely going to keep a kind of straight letter style here. Some of the letters too, I start with kind of just a base tag almost of the shape I want to go for, and then I start building those blocks up. So you know, I kind of preach that in my approach to designing many letters. So you know, literally I'm showing that I like to use that here in the live form when I'm sketching a letter out for the first time, even on a wall. Helps you to size things up and position them well, and then you know, you can get the whole piece in there.
Alright, we got the outline pretty much laid in. Got a ton of corrections to do on that I, but pretty happy with the other three letters. So yeah, let's jump on a little bit of a blue fill here. I've got really dark blue here, hoping to do that, and maybe in combination with the turquoise for kind of outline stuff. Can always fall back on the black if needed. Barely any of that, so maybe we'll go for some of these light blues and do a little gradient or some shading. Let's start with kind of this gray blue here.
So I'm starting in with that light blue. And check out some of these first lines from the Painter's Touch. We're going to go with a super light blue, almost a gray. Then we go to a kind of cobalt blue and then a bright blue. This paint was not mixed totally well. So I'm going to take some time here and really shake that can up because almost every stroke is changing a little bit differently. Now, sure, that could look a little cool, but I know for a fact that if I kept going like that, the paint would maybe slowly get mixed in, and then by the time I hit my eye, I would literally have like a totally different shade than the S. So rather than try to then play work back. You know, I don't have too many cans on me. You know, just take the couple minutes to make sure it's well shaken, and keep going at it, because it'll continue if you don't really correct it. And even after a good shake, I still had a kind of lighter blue section than that first section I did. So I kind of just pushed forward at this point, and used that in combination with some of the other blues. So it wasn't really a total break all, but I don't know what it was with this can. It just literally did not want to stay in one shade. You can also see here that the brains are kind of drifting and dragging down, and we got this huge mass of the pocket totally kind of opened up in that crater at the top. So we're going to have to readdress that as we actually want to use it, because as it's going, it is not going to work. It's still pretty soft right now and not quite totally dry, so I'm going to have to even wait a little bit to probably put my first lines over that. You know, it is a great testament to Rusto cans that with an adapter and a gray dot on there, they really do cover really well, and you know, it is a smooth pass. The form factor here is pretty big, honestly, so it's a little bit forgiving in that respect, that I don't need super tight cutbacks with the Rustos. But in all honesty, you're getting crazy good coverage on that first pass. So it is kind of funny to see a lot of people just push to exclusively using the really nice paint when you pretty much got a proper graffiti can here with an adapter cap just at all your hardware stores here in the US.
It took most of a can, but we are established. We got all our basic outline going, still letting the foam dry a little bit, and I'll cut it back with a knife, but liking where we're going. I think time for some 3D and shading, and then we can work up with the outline. Got a dark shade of blue here, probably gonna be my starting point for that 3D, and then maybe some of the dark purple. Forget how deep that shade is, but if it's deep enough, hopefully it'll work well. Oh yeah, and I always have the black to fall back on. Thinking maybe do a vanishing point down to the center per usual. Or should we do everything to one side? Piece is kind of to the left here, so maybe we'll do a right dominant vanishing point.
And this dark blue cover is so sweet. Really nice blues from Rusto. It served as a great 3D here. It contrasted well, and honestly, coming up, I kind of like the piece with just the two blue shades, pretty much the best throughout all this. So it was you know, a work in progress. Obviously, I finished the piece out and shaded it further, but really just the two contrasts here. These two colors work really nice off one another.
I think we're getting dry enough. See if we can smooth it out.
I don't think I got it on camera, but I actually ended up using some kind of plaster drywall paste to fill in some of the bigger cracks here at the end, so it kind of smoothed out the texture. And then I didn't catch it on camera, but some guy mentioned that I should have done like a brains kind of style to the puff here, where it gave it extra texture on the wall, and maybe something I can revisit after, because you know, I've gone back to the wall a few times now, and it's still a little speckled and gives it some cool texture. So maybe something that's due for a little character styling around. I know I've definitely mentioned this before, but the fact that Color Place has super light opacity means that it's honestly a great shading tool. When you're using Color Place, you're pretty much forced to have a soft edge, so using that to kind of the advantage, it dusts and shades pretty nicely.
I'm gonna go through and get all the left edges here, the dark shadow. I don't know that I'll have a single tone for the outline. Hoping that we go through and get enough with the black on that one side, and then maybe we can do a lighter shade of blue on the top right. So we'll see how it looks. Still rocking a $1 can here, so not super hyped to get kind of these washed out lines, but I'll try to take it slow.
Yeah, so I wanted to pick kind of a top left highlight here for all my lights. So I ended up using some white. I don't got a lot of it on hand, so we'll see how long that lasts. But it was a good starting point to kind of eye in what our shades might look like, and kept me away from having to do a full solid outline. You'll notice here I don't actually outline the whole piece. I kind of just shaded it and contoured it.
Check it. We got some pink down up next. I think I'm gonna hit the kind of force field in here. Only have a teeny bit of white, so I got to use that super sparingly. But do some maybe double drop shadow, give a little shade to this whole thing, and got some like yellow and purple for some extra bits and whatnot, but I think we got a good shade set going, so I like what we're headed with.
And something about these double drop shadows where you get a drop shadow that's just a slightly different contrast or darker shade than your background. I don't know, that is just something that I've been playing with all summer long. I actually just did it in a piece today, and it's just something that's going to be, you know, so nice to see when it adds that just little bit of extra 3D to bring it off that background. I'm boasting about it here, but I can definitely recommend trying it out because it really does bring that piece off the wall. So next time you're planning out your piece, definitely kind of think about what your background color is and maybe a secondary kind of drop shadow that you can use to really bring that piece off the wall. You guys let me know what you think about this kind of bright blue I added here. It's, you know, in parallel with that white, so it's giving me some highlights, but I think what is really bugging me about it is that the actual color to it, it's not quite the same hue as these other blues. You know, it's so punchy and so cyan there, and the other ones are kind of soft and, you know, that grayish kind of, and then the real royal blue, so it's kind of adding a weird contrast to this, and, you know, an ultra kind of vibrant style. So not my favorite mode here, but it ended up working out all right. I think I would have preferred to have like a super light gray or something in its place. You know, I had some overspray and some issues with where the piece landed versus the background, so I'm going to go back in with some buff paint, kind of touch up some of those sections. And honestly, it worked out pretty well, but I've started to come back to the wall with actually having a paintbrush on hand. You know, historically it was just kind of like, whatever, I don't really care to have one and, you know, be bothered to bring one along. But this is probably the third or fourth time now that I've, you know, touch things up with the roller, and sure, you can get a decently small edge, but it is kind of like, you know, glopping it on there and not as intricate as I desire to have when, you know, just a small little $1 brush would get you much better and much better control.
We are really down to the last of these.
So I think this will be the last time you see me trying to correct my cutbacks with a little bit of buff paint on a big roller. Time to sign this piece off. So super happy with the end result. You'll have to let me know what you guys think. Had a fun time. You know, this was right at the beginning of the season, so had a fun time, you know, taking it easy, taking it slow. Didn't want to, you know, stress myself out too bad with filming a really dedicated video or trying to teach a tip the first time out on the wall for the year. You know, just like everybody else, I gotta relearn and make sure, you know, I'm back up to par.
Well, I think we managed to make it amongst many different scrap cans. I'll try to leave some info about colors and whatnot down in the description, but used a touch of 94, some dang in the mix, lots of painter's touch, and then didn't actually get to the formal ironlak, but got to use some of the ironlak basic on that. Oh, can't forget the trusty dollar can from Color Place. And of course, got the bucket of Oops pink paint, and I think we're ready to do it. Here's the finished piece.
So this served as a nice low-key day. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed the little commentary over it. And looking back at this, it's fun to see and learn from myself a little bit, see what I like from the piece, taking a few months away from looking at it. And in all honesty, you know, it was a good start to the season, and super happy where the season's gone. I actually just finished up a battle at a local shop here that just opened up, so maybe you'll see some content from that. If you're in the market for some supplies, mainly sticker stuff for your eggshell needs and whatnot, drop by the web shop. I've got some sweet deals over there for some new holographic eggshells, as well as, and of course I've got a stock of the kind of mixed colored backgrounds going as well right now. So jump over there if you want to grab some supplies and vicariously support the channel. Jump over to Instagram if you want to check out maybe some still frames to this piece or some of my other ones. And I know I mentioned it at the beginning, but that piece that me and Noah put together just a few months back, definitely a heavy speed art. So if you're looking for another video in this vein, I got you there as well. That's really going to do it for me, guys. Peace.